I used to believe that the sound of children's laughter could fix anything. At 72, you learn to cling to small things. The hum of the refrigerator at night. The way sunlight lands on the kitchen table at exactly 8:15 in the morning. The ritual of toast, 2 slices, always slightly overdone, and black coffee in the same chip mug my wife bought in 1998. And laughter, especially that. "Grandpa, you burned again," Lily would say, wrinkling her nose as she climbed onto the bar stool. "It's called character," I'd reply, sliding a plate toward her. "Something your generation lacks." She would giggle, always giggle. Her brother Max, 10 years old and already glued to his tablet, would barely look up. "Mom says too much burnt food causes cancer," he muttered once. "Your mom says a lot of things," I said dryly. That was a Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. I remember because the receipt for groceries, $84.67 from Kroger, is still clipped to the corner of my bulletin board. I've always kept records. Old habits from 38 years in accounting don't fade. Numbers don't lie. People do. But I didn't know that yet. Or maybe I did, and just refused to apply it to my own son. Daniel arrives late. He always arrives late. That day it was 9:47 a.m. His silver Lexus pulling into my driveway like it owned the place. "Dad," he called out, stepping in without knocking. "You didn't have to make breakfast." "I didn't," I said. "I made it for myself. They're just stealing it." He laughed. Too quickly. Always too quickly when money was somewhere in the air. You learn to recognize that kind of laugh. But again later. At the time, I was just glad he came. He kissed my cheek, distracted, already scrolling through his phone. His wife, Amanda, followed behind him with that tight smile she reserved for me, the kind that never reached her eyes. "You shouldn't let him eat that," she said, pointing at Max's toast. "It's not healthy." "It's toast," I replied. "It's burnt toast. It builds resilience." She didn't laugh. She never laughed at my jokes. We sat around the table, the 4 of us, 5, if you count Max's tablet as a permanent family member. The kitchen smelled like coffee and slightly charred bread. Outside, a lawnmower drone somewhere down the street. Normal, ordinary, safe. That's how it always starts. "Dad," Daniel said eventually, leaning back in his chair. "I wanted to talk to you about something." There it was. Not abrupt. Never abrupt. He always eased into it like a salesman. "Of course you did," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "It's about the house." "Which one?" He smiled as if I'd made a joke. I hadn't. "The one we're buying. The new place in Brookfield. For bedrooms. Good school district, for the kids." Lily perked up immediately. "My room is going to be purple." "Lavender," Amanda corrected sharply. "We talked about this." I watched them, the choreography of it. The way the children were always present when money entered the conversation. At the time, I thought it was coincidence. It wasn't. "That sounds expensive," I said. "Yeah." Well, Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "The market's crazy right now. The down payment alone is $120,000. There it was, a number, a real one. I nodded slowly. "And how much do you have?" "About 40. 40,000? Yeah. So you're short 80. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Lily, who was now drawing something with a crayon on a napkin. A house, big windows, a crooked sun in the corner. "Grandpa," she said suddenly, holding up to me, "this is your room in our new house." I took the napkin. "My room, 2nd floor, small square, no windows drawn." "How thoughtful," I said. Amanda leaned forward. "We just want the kids to grow up in a good environment. You know how important that is." "I do," I said quietly. I remembered every dollar I spent raising Daniel, every overtime shift, every missed holiday. Tuition alone had cost me $86,000 between 1998 and 2002. I still had the statements. I always kept the statements. "We're not asking for a gift," Daniel added quickly. "It's just a loan, temporary. We'll pay you back." "Of course you will," I said. And I meant it. God help me, I meant it. "How much?" I asked. He hesitated. That was the only real moment of honesty in the entire conversation. 80,000, he said, finally. The number settled in the room like dust. Max didn't look up. Lily kept drawing. Amanda watched me like a hawk, measuring, calculating. I stood up slowly and walked the hallway. The old wooden cabinet creaked as I opened it. Inside, Folders neatly labeled. Bank statements. 2020 to 2024. Investment accounts. Wire transfers. I pulled out my checkbook instead. Some habits you don't document. Some mistakes you commit in ink. When I came back, Daniel was already smiling. "Thank you, Dad," he said, before I'd even written the number. I sat down, wrote the check. $80,000. March 12, 2024. Memo family support. "Don't rush to pay back," I said, sliding it across the table. Amanda exhaled, almost imperceptibly. Relief. Daniel took the check, like it weighed nothing. "You're helping your grandkids," he said. I looked at Lily's drawing again. My little square room in the corner of a house that didn't exist yet. "No," I said quietly. "I'm helping you." He didn't notice the difference. None of them did. And that was the problem. Because that check, $80,000, written on an ordinary Tuesday morning with burnt toast and lukewarm coffee, was not the beginning. It was already the third time. I just hadn't added the numbers yet. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. If you've worked with numbers long enough, you develop a certain instinct. It's not dramatic. No sudden realizations, no lightning strikes. Just a quiet discomfort, a sense that something doesn't balance, even when the columns appear neat. That feeling started, for me, sometime in late April. April 27th, 2024. Saturday, 6:40 p.m. I was sitting in my living room, the old leather recliner creaking under me, watching a baseball game I wasn't really following. The volume was low. I prefer it that way. Commentators tend to talk too much, and I've spent most of my life listening carefully. On the coffee table, my checkbook, a pen, and 3 receipts. One from Home Depot, $1, $247.90. One from a pediatric clinic, $3, $860.00. And one handwritten note, "Dad, urgent, will explain later. D." I turned the receipts over again, as if the numbers might rearrange themselves into something more reasonable. They didn't. The Home Depot charge was from Daniel's card, but paid for my account. I recognized the transaction code. April 14th. The clinic bill? Same thing. April 19th. I hadn't written those checks myself. That's what caught my attention. I keep records. Meticulous ones. Every check numbered, every transfer logged. It's not paranoia, it's discipline. When you've spent decades auditing other people's mistakes, you learn not to make your own. So I stood up, walked to the desk by the window, and opened my ledger. Yes, a physical one. Leather-bound. Pages slightly yellowed. There's something honest about ink on paper that digital numbers lack. March 12th, $80,000. Family support. January 5th, $45,000. Emergency Daniel. November 18th, $62,500. Medical plus tuition. I paused there. $62,500. I remember that one. Max had supposedly needed a special program. Something about advanced placement, private schooling, opportunities. Children always make the numbers feel smaller. I turned the page. Running total. $187,500. I leaned back in the chair and let out a slow breath. That's a lot of toast, I muttered to myself. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Since my wife passed in 2021, silence had become a permanent resident. You get used to it, like a draft under the door. But that evening, the silence felt heavier. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my banking app. Transaction history doesn't lie. It doesn't soften things, doesn't explain, doesn't justify. It just lists facts in cold in different rows. April 14th transfer. $1,247.90. April 19th transfer. $3,860. April 22nd transfer. $2,300. April 25th transfer. $1,150 for transactions, all labeled authorized user. I frowned. I don't remember authorizing anything. Then I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. After my minor surgery, Daniel insisted on being added to my account just in case. For emergencies, Dad. What if something happens? At the time, it sounded reasonable. Everything sounds reasonable when it comes wrapped in concern. I tapped into the authorization settings. There it was. Daniel Carter, full access. Not limited, not conditional, full. I said aloud. That was all. Just no anger. Not yet. Just arithmetic. The next day, Sunday, they came over again. Like clockwork. 11:12 a.m. this time. I was in the kitchen, making eggs, overcooked, if Lily had anything to say about it. "Grandpa," she shouted, running in. "Guess what? You dyed your hair purple?" "No," she laughed. "We saw the new house again." "Ah," I said, flipping the eggs. "Still lavender?" "Lavender," Amanda corrected from the doorway. "Of course." Daniel walked in behind her, sunglasses still on. Phone pressed to his ear. Yeah, we'll cover it. "Don't worry about that," he was saying. "Cover it." I plated the eggs, set the table. Routine is a powerful anesthetic. It dulls questions, smooths edges, but not completely. "Dad," Daniel said, ending the call and slipping the phone into his pocket. "Quick thing?" "Of course," I replied. He smiled. Again, that same smile. "We had some unexpected expenses this week. Just temporary stuff." "How temporary?" "A couple thousand. Maybe 5. I nodded slowly, wiping my hands on a towel. "I saw the transactions," I said. He froze. Not dramatically. Just a fraction of a second. But it was there. "What transactions?" "The ones from my account," I said calmly. "Home Depot, the clinic, a few others." Amanda looked at him. Sharp. Quick. Daniel recovered fast. "Oh, that? Yeah, I meant to tell you. It was urgent. And since I'm already on the account." "You didn't tell me," I interrupted. A pause. Then a shrug. "I was going to." "Of course you were." I studied his face. The ease of it. The casual dismissal. "That account isn't for convenience," I said. "It's for emergencies." It was an emergency. "Which one?" I asked. He hesitated again. And this time, it lasted just a little longer. That's when the numbers started to shift in my head. Not just as amounts, but as patterns. Because $187,500 doesn't disappear by accident. And emergencies don't happen on a schedule. I nodded as if satisfied. "Next time," I said, "you call me first." "Of course, Dad." "Of course." We sat down to eat. Lily complained about the eggs. Max didn't look up. Amanda scrolled through something on her phone. Daniel laughed at something no one said. And I realized something small, quiet, precise. They weren't asking anymore. They were taking. And the worst part? They expected me not to notice. There is a particular kind of silence that follows doubt. It's not loud, not dramatic. It doesn't slam doors or raise voices. It just settles, like dust on furniture you haven't touched in years. After that Sunday, I stopped asking questions. Out loud, at least. Instead, I started listening. Carefully. On May 6, 2024, Monday, 2:18 p.m., I found myself at the bank. Not because I had to be there, but because I wanted to see something in person. Numbers look different when printed. More accountable. The young woman at the counter, Emily, according to her name tag, smiled professionally. "How can I help you today, sir?" "I'd like a full statement," I said. "Last 12 months, including authorized user activity." She typed quickly. Efficient. Detached. "Would you like that printed or emailed?" "Printed." Paper leaves a trace. While the printer hummed, I glanced around. Same beige walls, same stale carpet smell, same artificial plants gathering dust. I'd been coming to this branch since 2003, back when Dana was still in college. Call me twice a week. Not for money, just to talk. Funny how things change. "Here you go," Emily said, handing me a thick stack. I thanked her, folded the pages neatly, and slipped them into a manila folder. I didn't open it there. Some things require privacy. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table point 7:05 p.m. sharp. The folder lay in front of me, like a quiet accusation. I opened it, page after page. Dates, transfers, codes, amounts. At first it looked ordinary. Then patterns began to emerge. Small amounts, frequent. $1,150, $2,300, $980, $3,400, $760. Then larger ones. $12,000, February 2nd. $18,500, March 8th. $9,700, March 28th. I reached for my calculator. Old habit. Tap, tap, tap. Total. Authorized user withdrawals over 12 months. $214,830. I stared at the number for a long time. 214,000, I said quietly. The refrigerator hummed in the background. Outside, a car passed. Tires on asphalt. Ordinary life continuing without interruption. I flipped the earlier pages. At the checks I'd written myself. $80,000. $45,000. $62,500. Total. $187,500. Combined total. $402,330. I let out a short, humorless breath. That's not support, I murmured. That's a salary. The strange thing was, I still wasn't angry. Not yet. Just precise. Numbers have a way of stripping emotion down to its bones. And the bones were starting to look ugly. The call came 3 days later. May 9th. Thursday, 8:42 p.m. I wasn't supposed to hear it. That much became clear almost immediately. I had fallen asleep in the recliner. Television on low, glasses still on my nose. It happens more often than I'd like to admit. The phone rang. Not mine. Daniel's. He must have left it behind earlier that day. I remembered now he'd stopped by just for 10 minutes, rushing out afterward, distracted as always. The phone buzzed again on the kitchen counter. Then again. Finally it stopped. Silence returned. And then a voice, faint, tinny, coming from a speaker. Daniel? Did you hang up? Amanda. I didn't move. Sometimes stillness is the only advantage you have. Hello, she said again, sharper this time. Are you there? A rustling sound. Then Daniel's voice, distant. Yeah, I'm here. Bad signal. You always say that, she snapped. Listen, we need to talk about your father. Something in my chest tightened. Not pain, just attention. I know, Daniel said. I'll handle it. No, you won't, she replied. You said that last month. And the month before. A pause. He's starting to notice, Daniel admitted. Starting. I almost smiled. Then use the kids more, Amanda said flatly. Silence. I felt my fingers grip the armrest. What? Daniel asked. You heard me. Bring them over more often. Talk about the house, the school, their future. He melts every time Lily looks at him. A short laugh. Not kind. It works, she continued. It's worked for over $400,000 so far. 400,000. They said it so easily, like discussing groceries. He's not stupid, Daniel said, quieter now. No, Amanda agreed. But he's lonely. That's better. The words landed clean, surgical. Lonely. That's why this works, she went on. You think he'd give you 80 grand if it was just you asking? Daniel didn't answer. Exactly, she said. So stop hesitating. We still need at least another 100 to stabilize everything. Another 100? He repeated. For the mortgage, the credit lines, and your business mess, she said sharply. Or do you want to explain to your father where all this money actually went? Another pause. Longer this time. No, Daniel said finally. Good. Then stick to the plan. Click. The line went dead. I sat there for a long time after that. The house felt different. Smaller, somehow, quieter. I stood up slowly and walked to the kitchen. The phone lay on the counter, screen dark, innocent. I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. Everything I needed was already recorded. Not on tape, not on paper. But somewhere deeper, clearer, precise. I walked back to the table, opened my ledger, and wrote one line beneath the totals. May 9th confirmation. Then I closed the book, very carefully, because at that moment something shifted. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, understanding. And once you truly understand something like that, there's no going back to burnt toast and comfortable lies. Revenge, if you want to call it that, doesn't begin with anger. It begins with paperwork. At least it did for me. May 10th, 2024. Friday, 6:30 a.m. I woke up earlier than usual. No alarm, just clarity. The kind that settles in after a long equation finally balances. The kitchen looked the same. Same chip mug. Same toaster with the loose lever. Same sunlight creeping across the table. But the routine felt different. Deliberate. I didn't burn the toast that morning. First time in months. By 8:15, I was at my desk with 3 things in front of me. The printed bank statements, my Ledger A yellow legal pad. I drew a line down the center of the page. Left side, documented transfers. Right side, declared purpose. Then I started writing. March 12th, $80,000. House down payment. February 2nd, $12,000. Short-term expense. March 8th, $18,500. Urgent bill. April 14th, $1,247.90. Home Depot. April 19th, $3,860. Medical unverified. Line after line. Neat. Handwriting. No emotion. Just facts. By 9:40 a.m., the page was full. By 10:05, I had a second page. By 10:32, I stopped. Total confirmed. Withdrawals and transfers. $402,330. I underlined it twice. Then I wrote one more number beneath it. Unexplained. $137,000 approximate. Because not everything had a story. And that bothered me more than anything else. At 11:15, I made a call. Good morning, Carter and Wells, law offices. Yes, I said. I'd like to schedule a consultation. Regarding what matter, sir? I paused for a fraction of a second. Financial misconduct, I said. There was a brief silence on the other end. Of course. We have an opening Monday at 2:00 p.m. with Mr. Howard Wells. I'll take it. Monday arrived with irritating punctuality. May 13 th. 1:52 p.m. I sat in the waiting room, hands resting on my cane, not because I needed it, but because it gave me something to hold on to. Law offices always smell the same. Coffee, paper, and quiet ambition. Mr. Carter? A voice called. I stood. Howard Wells was younger than I expected. Mid-40s, maybe. Crisp suit, measured movements. The kind of man who listens for a living. Please have a seat, he said, gesturing toward a chair across his desk. I placed a folder in front of him. I've prepared documentation, I said. I can see that, he replied, opening it. He didn't rush. That's what I liked about him immediately. No theatrics. No unnecessary sympathy. Just attention. He flipped through the pages, paused occasionally, made small notes. After about 15 minutes, he leaned back. This is thorough, he said. I was an accountant. I can tell. A faint smile. Let me ask you something directly, he continued. Did you authorize these transactions? Some, I said. Not all. And the authorized user? My son. He nodded slowly. And do you have reason to believe these funds were taken under false pretenses? I thought about the phone call, about Amanda's voice. Use the kids more. Yes, I said. Do you have proof? Not yet, I replied. But I will. He studied me for a moment. Then he closed the folder. Mr. Carter, he said, what you're describing could constitute financial exploitation, possibly fraud, depending on how the funds were obtained and represented. The words hung in the air. Clinical, precise. Good, I said. He raised an eyebrow slightly. Good, he repeated. Yes, I said calmly. I prefer things that have names, that earned a different kind of look, respect maybe, or recognition. Here's what I recommend, he said. First, we revoke your son's access to all accounts immediately. Second, we begin documenting communication, texts, calls, any requests for money. Third, he paused. We let them continue. I leaned forward slightly. Explain. If they believe everything is normal, he said, they'll keep asking. And every request becomes evidence. A slow nod. Yes, I said. That makes sense. Additionally, he added, we can prepare a formal demand for repayment once we have sufficient documentation. If necessary, we escalate. To court. If necessary. I sat back. Court. Public. Mess. Final. I don't want noise, I said. Not yet. You want control, he replied. Yes. He closed the folder again and slid it back toward me. Then we proceed carefully. That evening, 6:20 p.m., I sat at my kitchen table again. Same place, same light, but this time there was something new. A small digital recorder, $89, bought that afternoon from Best Buy. Receipt folded neatly beside it. I turned it over in my hands. Simple device. One button, red light. I placed it in the drawer by the sink. Not hidden, just available. Then I picked up my phone and sent a message. To Daniel, come by tomorrow. Let's talk about the house. I may be able to help further. The reply came quickly. Too quickly. Really? That would mean a lot, Dad. Of course it would. I looked at the message for a long moment. Then I set the phone down, quietly, because for the first time in months, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. May 18th, 2024. Saturday, 3:00 p.m. Children's birthday parties are loud by design. Noise covers things. Spills over cracks. Makes everything seem lighter than it is. Max turned 11 that day. Backyard. Inflatable bounce house. $6.20 rental, I later noted. Paper plates with cartoon dinosaurs. A table sagging under pizza boxes. And a cake that looked like it had cost more than my first car. I arrived at 2:47 p.m. Always early. Old habit. Daniel waved from across the yard, one hand holding a drink, the other gesturing too broadly, like a man performing happiness instead of feeling it. Dad, you made it. I was invited, I said. He laughed, a little too loud. Amanda approached, air kissing my cheek. So glad you came, she said. Max was hoping you would. Of course he was. Max barely looked up from his friends. Hey, Grandpa, he muttered. Happy birthday, I said, handing him an envelope. $200 inside. Cash. Simple. Clean. No ledger entry needed. I took a seat near the edge of the yard. Not too central. Not too distant. A good place to observe. The recorder sat in my jacket pocket. Red light off. For now. By 3:30, the party was in full swing. Children screaming. Music playing. Adults clustered in small groups, pretending not to notice each other's finances. I watched Daniel move through it all. Laughing, shaking hands, clapping shoulders. Confident. Relaxed. A man with no visible worries. That's what borrowed money buys you. Appearance. At 3:42, he sat down beside me. Nice turnout, right? He said. Expensive turnout, I replied. He smiled. Yeah, well, kids only turn 11 once. Dad, on the other hand, I said, is very consistent. That earned a glance. Quick, sharp, then gone. Dad, he said, lowering his voice slightly. Can we talk for a minute? I reached into my pocket and pressed the button. A small click, barely audible. Of course, I said. We stood and walked toward the side of the house. Quieter there, just the hum of the air conditioning unit and distant laughter. Amanda joined us a moment later. Of course she did. We didn't want to bring this up today, she said. But the timing is important. Timing. Always timing. How much? I asked. No pretense. Daniel exhaled. About 100, he said. 1,000, Amanda clarified. Of course, I said. A pause. We're close to finalizing everything. Daniel continued. The house, the refinancing, some business restructuring. Your business is failing, I said calmly. Silence. Amanda's smile tightened. It's not failing, she said. It's adjusting. Adjusting to what? I asked. Reality. Daniel shifted his weight. Dad, we don't need criticism right now. We need support. I nodded slowly. Support, I repeated. Yes, Amanda said. For the kids. There it was, right on cue. I let the silence stretch, long enough to become uncomfortable. Then I reached into my jacket, not for my checkbook, but for a folded stack of papers. I handed them to Daniel. He frowned. What's this? Read, I said. He unfolded the pages. Bank statements. Highlighted lines. Totals, circled in blue ink. Amanda leaned in. I watched their faces change. Confusion first. Then recognition. Then something sharper. What is this? Daniel asked. You tell me, I said. He flipped through faster now. $80,000. $45,000. $62,500. Dozens of smaller transfers. The final page. Total. $402,330. Amanda's lips parted slightly. That can't be right, she said. It is, I replied. Daniel looked up. You've been tracking this? For months, I said. A lie. For years, if I was honest. You never said anything, he said. You never asked permission, I answered. That landed. Hard. Amanda crossed her arms. Those were necessary expenses, she said. Family expenses. Interesting, I said, because I don't remember authorizing Home Depot at midnighter. Urgent transfers without explanation. Daniel's face flushed. We were going to tell you. You were going to continue, I interrupted. A beat of silence. Then, you're overreacting, Amanda snapped. This is what families do. They help each other. No, I said quietly. Families don't strategize how to use the kids more. That stopped everything. Completely. Daniel froze. Amanda went pale. Excuse me, she said. I held his gaze. May 9th.8:42 p.m. speakerphone. I said. Daniel's eyes flickered. Just for a second. But that was enough. You were listening? He asked. No, I said. You were careless. The noise from the party drifted over. Laughter, music. A child screaming with joy. A perfect contrast. You manipulated me, I continued. You used my grandchildren as leverage. You took over $400,000 under false pretenses. That's not, Amanda started. It is, I said. Calm. Precise. Final. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. Okay, he said quickly. Okay, maybe we made mistakes, but we can fix this. Just don't make a scene, all right? Not today. I looked past him, at the guests, at the children, at Max, blowing out candles, then back at my son. You already made the scene, I said. And for the first time, he understood. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It was the beginning of consequences. The interesting thing about truth is that it doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be placed in the right moment. May 18th, 2024.3:58 p.m. The candles had just been blown out. Applause. Laughter. Someone shouted, "Make a wish," as if wishes had ever solved anything that money hadn't already complicated. Max grinned, frosting on his cheek. Lily clapped too hard, her small hands red. Normal. Perfectly normal. Daniel leaned closer to me, his voice tight. Let's go inside, he said. We'll talk privately. No, I replied. Amanda's jaw tightened. This isn't the place. You are right, I said calmly. It isn't. I stood up, slowly, deliberately. Age gives you that advantage. People assume your movements are slow because they have to be, not because you've chosen every second of them. Daniel, I said, just loud enough. He froze. There's something about a father using your full name in public that still works, no matter how old you get. A few heads turned. Not many. Just enough. I think, I continued, we should clarify something before dessert. Amanda stepped forward quickly. That's not necessary. It is, I said, still calm. Always calm. That unsettled them more than shouting ever could. I reached into my jacket and pulled out 3 copies of the documents. One for Daniel, one for Amanda, and one I held up slightly. For anyone interested in numbers, I said. A light chuckle came from somewhere in the group. Nervous, polite. People didn't know what was happening yet, but they could feel it. I've spent the last week reviewing my finances, I said. Turns out I've contributed approximately $402,000 to my son's household over the past 18 months. Now more heads turned. Numbers do that. They pull attention. That includes direct checks, transfers, and unauthorized withdrawals. Silence began to spread, like ink in water. Daniel started. Let me finish, I said. Not louder, just firmer. He stopped, because he always used to stop when I spoke like that. Some habits never quite die. I was under the impression, I continued, that these were temporary, necessary expenses. Family support. I let that hang. Then, on May 9th, I learned otherwise. Amanda's face went completely still. Specifically, I said, I learned that my grandchildren were being used as leverage in a financial strategy. A murmur moved through the guests now. Quiet, curious, uncomfortable. What is he talking about? Someone whispered. Daniel stepped closer. Stop. Just stop. No, I said. And for the first time, there was steel in my voice. You don't get to decide when this stops, I said. You lost that privilege. The air shifted. Sharp. Amanda recovered first. Of course she did. This is ridiculous, she said. Louder now, addressing the crowd. He's confused. He's been misinterpreting things. I recorded it, I said. That ended it. Completely. You what? Daniel asked. I recorded the conversation. I repeated. The one about using the kids more. About another 100,000. About my loneliness being convenient. No one laughed now. No one moved. Even the children seemed quieter, as if instinctively stepping back from something they didn't understand. That's illegal, Amanda snapped. No, I said. What's illegal is taking money under false pretenses. A long pause. Then I reached into my pocket again. This time for a different envelope. Thicker. Heavier. I handed it to Daniel. He didn't take it at first. Go on, I said. He did. Inside, a formal letter. Carter and Wells letterhead. Legal language. Precise. Cold. He skimmed it. His face drained of color. Amanda grabbed it from him, reading faster. "What is this?" she demanded. "A demand for repayment," I said. "Full amount. Documented. With interest." "That's insane," she said. "We don't have that kind of money." "I know," I replied. That was the point. Daniel looked up at me. For the first time that day, no performance. No charm. Just fear. "You're suing us?" he asked. "If necessary," I said. "But first I've done something simpler." I paused. "Timing matters." "I revoked your access to all accounts," I said. "As of yesterday, 09:00 a.m. Amanda inhaled sharply. "And," I added, "I've notified the bank of suspected financial exploitation. They're reviewing all transactions." Silence. Heavy now. Final. "You can't do this," Daniel said. But there was no conviction left in it. "I already did," I replied. In the distance, the birthday cake sat untouched, candles still half melted, sugar and celebration, waiting for a moment that had already passed. "This is your chance," I said, quieter now. "You either start telling the truth, or you let the system do it for you." Amanda said nothing. Daniel said nothing, because for the first time, there was nothing left to say that could turn numbers into something else. And numbers, as I've said before, don't lie. The strangest part about losing $400,000 is not the number. It's the silence that comes after. May 19th, 2024. Sunday, 7:10 a.m. I was back in my kitchen. Same mug, same table, same strip of sunlight cutting across the wood like a ruler measuring time. The toaster clicked, perfectly golden this time. I didn't burn it. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. A car started, then faded away. Ordinary morning. Extraordinary absence. No messages from Daniel. No calls. "No, Dad, we need to talk." Just nothing. I took a sip of coffee and opened my ledger. May 18th, action taken. May 19th, no contact. I underlined the second line, twice, because silence, too, is a form of communication. By Tuesday, the noise returned. Not from them, from the world. May 21, SD.11:32 a.m. My phone rang. "Mr. Carter? This is Linda from First National Bank." "Yes," I said. "We've completed a preliminary review of your account activity," she continued. "There are irregularities consistent with unauthorized use." I assumed as much. "We've temporarily frozen the authorized user profile and flagged several transactions for investigation. You may be contacted for further documentation." "I have documentation," I said. "I don't doubt that," she replied, a hint of something warmer in her voice. "Respect, perhaps. Also, for what it's worth, you did the right thing." I didn't answer immediately, because right is a complicated word when it comes to family. But numbers? Numbers are simple. "Thank you," I said. The letter came Thursday. Not from Daniel. From his lawyer. Thin envelope. Cheap paper. Aggressive tone. "Our clients dispute the characterization of these transfers. Family contributions made voluntarily. No binding repayment agreement." I read it once, then folded it neatly and placed it under my coffee cup. It made a good coaster. That evening, 6:45 p.m., my phone finally lit up. "Daniel." I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello." Silence. Then, "Dad." His voice sounded different, smaller. "We need to talk," he said. "We already did," I replied. "No," he said quickly. "Not like this. Not publicly. You humiliated us." I looked around my empty kitchen, at the chair where my wife used to sit, at the walls that had heard every version of my life. "You've humiliated yourselves," I said. A pause. "We're in trouble," he admitted. "Of course you are." "How much?" I asked. A bitter exhale. "More than you think." "I already know how much I gave you," I said. "What I don't know is how much you owe." Another silence. Then quietly, "Almost 600. I closed my eyes for a moment. $600,000. Not mismanagement. Collapse. Credit cards. Business loans. "The house deal's falling apart," he said. "We needed your help to stabilize everything." "No," I said. "You needed my money to delay the inevitable." "That's not fair." "It's accurate." His breathing sharpened. "You're really going to do this?" he asked. "To your own son?" I opened my eyes. "You already did it to your father," I said. That landed deep. "I used to think," I continued, quieter now, "that love meant giving, no matter what, no matter how much. I looked at my ledger, at the numbers, at the neat, obedient lines that had finally told me the truth. But love without limits, I said, is just permission. He didn't respond, because there was nothing left to argue with. Here's what happens next, I said. You work with your lawyer. You respond to the demand. You take responsibility. And if I don't, then the system will do it for you. Another pause. Long. Heavy. And the kids, he asked finally. There it was. Even now, I leaned back in my chair. They're welcome here, I said. Anytime. A breath of relief on his end. But you're not, I added. Silence. Complete. That's not fair, he said again, but weaker this time. No, I agreed. It's not. Fair would have been raising a son who didn't see his father as an account balance. Fair would have been trust, respect, gratitude. We didn't get fair. We got numbers. I'll be in touch, he said finally. I'm sure you will, I replied. The line went dead. That night, I sat in the living room. No television, no noise, just the quiet ticking of the clock on the wall. For the first time in a long while, it didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. I stood, walked to the hallway, and opened the old cabinet. Inside, the folders remained. Neat, ordered, honest. I added one more. Resolution. Empty. For now. I closed the door gently, because some endings don't arrive all at once. They unfold, line by line, number by number, until one day you look around your quiet house and realize you didn't lose $400,000. You paid for the truth. And this time, I kept the receipt. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription.